Now, continue our conversation on the electoral reform controversy. We will be focusing on matters arising, but with another guest. Now, join us from our studios in Abuja is the president of the Nigerian Bar Association. I beg your pardon. Joining us now to share his thoughts.
We're trying to establish connection with the president of the Nigerian Bar Association. Hopefully, he's able to join us. But we also have another guest who's equally joining us as well. While our producers are working on that, we do have the convener of lawyers defending democracy, Mr. Kingdom Okere, who's joining us first. After which we'd have another guest who join us right now. But let's talk to Mr. Okere, Kingdom Okere. Thank you so much for joining us live from our Abuja studios as well.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning. Now, what do you make of this, the back and forth coming from the Senate? Some have said it's not yet been passed, and there's a lot of outrage following the removal of the phrase that electronic transmission of election results will be mandatory. What's your take of this?
My take on it already has been expressed, when the coalition of civil society organizations, including Lawyers in Defense of Democracy, joined the protest yesterday on Friday. That protest was led partly by Aisha Yusuf and myself, and we expressed dismay over the show of shame, over the coup against democratic governance. But anything that's against a free and fair election is tantamount to a coup against the democratic governance. This nascent democracy, we must sustain it together. So Nigerians are eager to have free, fair, credible election that is anchored on online transmission of results, and people can view it from their island, from various points. We don't want a situation whereby our fate, will be left in the hands of INEC staff, who grossly mutilate, result sheets. So the message is clear and the message is continued. We're not going to back down until the right thing is done. The Supreme Court have settled it that if Nigerians want the electronic transmission of results, to be mandatory, that it has to be reflected in the electoral law. And that's what Nigerians are demanding. And that proposal has been made in section clause 60, subclause 3 of the proposed 2026 amendment, which the House of Representatives approved. And unfortunately, the Akpabio-led INEC, decided to disapprove of it. So what we are saying is that real-time online transmission of electronic results, must be captured in the 2026 proposed amendment to our Electoral Law 2022. It shouldn't be left at the discretion of the INEC chairman. When it was left at the discretion of Yakub Mahmoud, how did he exercise it? He exercised the discretion in a criminal, wrongful manner. Even when objections were raised at the International Conference Center when the results were being compiled, he ignored his own regulation and continued with the fraudulent compilation of the result. And in the wee hours of the morning, when Nigerians were asleep, he announced the incumbent president as the winner of that election. And the resultant effects. The voting didn't reflect what Nigerians voted for. And the following morning, it was as if the entire country was a cemetery. Everywhere was so cold and silent. People mourned the Federal Republic of Nigeria because of Yakub Mahmoud's corrupt and criminal declaration of a fraudulent result. We don't want that kind of exercise of discretion. Real-time online transmission of results should be made mandatory in the 2026 electoral law. The Supreme Court has said so. So if you want it to be mandatory, it should be reflected in the Electoral Act, and that's what we are demanding. Even meanwhile, I disagree with the Supreme Court that it must be in the Electoral. If it's in the Electoral Act, fine, good. It becomes a law that is expressly stated in the Act. But where the INEC that derive power from both the Constitution and the Electoral Act makes a regulation like Yakub Mahmoud made. He made a regulation and told Nigerians that result to be transmitted online anytime. Even few days to that election, Michel Gogochiri held a press conference and told Nigerians that he was going to jettison his own regulation, that presidential election result was not going to be transmitted online. He also came out and debunked it. So all these things, this is an internet age. All these things are on the internet. You can still go back, search, and see what were his responses. Even a day, 2 days to 2023 presidential election, this man kept assuring us that he was going to conduct credible, free and fair election that is anchored on online transmission of election results from the various polling units, so that Nigerians can view from the island. And he failed us in exercise of the description. And that is the same clause the Akpabio-led INEC want to return in this to propose 2026 electoral law. We are saying no to that. We are saying that this democracy is not Akpabio's democracy. Akpabio that came back to the Senate through the back door, having contested presidential election almost 3 months after National Assembly primary has been concluded. This same Supreme Court corruptly gave him judgment that brought him to the Senate. And that is the foundation they want to lay. What they want to lay is just to lay a foundation for fraudulent election in 2027. So that this man that is nominated by people, members of Tinubu Cabal, will now also exercise wrongful discretion, against the wish, against the voting of the Nigerian masses, in announcing who will be the winner of the 2027 election. We're saying no to that. We are saying that this democracy is our democracy. This democracy will not sustain it together. Nigerians will not continue to be silent, why the people that we have been supposedly elected, to represent us in the National Assembly continue to do the other way around, while the masses are suffering. So we are saying that good governance begins with credible election. And credible election, over more than 20 years of practice of this democracy, will keep improving and improving. In one of my postulations, my LLM research, I describe laws that are, as they are in our statute books, as incorrect. They are laws as they are, that have been enacted. They can either be obeyed or disobeyed. But they become true law when they are given judicial interpretation, and which is in tandem with the realist school of thought. And now the Supreme Court has interpreted this section that has to do with electronic transmission of results and say that for it to be mandatory, it should be captured in our electoral law. And that is what Nigerians are demanding. Let INEC can never escape it. We will shut down the National
Mr. Okere, thanks.
We will occupy the National Assembly.
Mr. Okere, we understand. Thank you so much for elaborating on that. I mean, these are conversations that are going to be had. I'm sure you're also aware that the Senate says they will be holding a meeting tomorrow at 12. But let me bring in another legal practitioner who's here with us. Mr. Evans Ufeli joins us again. Good morning, and thank you so much for being here. So, Ufeli, are you here with us? Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. What's your take on this back and forth? And we're looking at it from the eye of the law, especially in reminiscent, or you could say in retrospect to what happened in 2023, post-election judicial issues, where there were cases of, let's leave the Abuja one, the Federal Capital Territory. But this one, Section 60, subsection 2, was a major conversation. So what do Nigerians need to know? Should transfer be passed, or mandatory transmission, or just transmission of election results? Which one?
Real-time transmission. As the vote is ongoing, there should be transmission. That is the only way it's not transferred by the criminal element that we have that made our election that made it not credible by years. It is report, and I'm very surprised the National Assembly able to do what to do.
All right, Mr. Ufeli, I'm sorry, but I think your audio is cracking in between. Maybe you might just want to possibly work on that so we can hear you, because it would be nice to really get your thoughts on this conversation. So we'll just give you a little more time so you can try and see if you can reconnect, or better to try to maybe log off the audio and log back in while we speak with Mr. Okere. Benga.
Now, my question to Mr. Barrister Okere is, you embarked on a protest on Friday, yes, telling the Senate that your demands are that there should be mandatory, which means compulsory, real-time transmission of electoral results. But over the weekend, in Uyo, during the book launch, the Senate President said Nigerians have been insulting them, and that the issue is still up for debate. But I would like us to take a look at that video where the Senate President spoke, and then I'll pose my question.
Yes, Senator Monguno.
Distinguished Senators, my name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Barunet Senatorial District. Mr. President, I propose that instead of using the word transmission, we should retain what is in the existing word extant law, which is transfer.
Any seconder?
Yes, second.
Yes, DSP.
I second.
Okay.
Did he hear what he said?
The motion has been moved and seconded. Those in support say aye. Those against. Institutions. Democracy breathes through such interrogation. But I don't think citizens are free to abuse the legislature. I give you an example. There is a man who heads one NGO, or CSO. He was on television the other day. He was abusing the current Nigerian Senate that he makes money from. And he said that the Senate is the worst since the world was founded. And he's judging us by something that is incoherent. Electoral Act amendment that is incompleted. We have not completed it, but they are already on television. You see all sort of panels. Because they don't understand lawmaking. They don't even know that even the one in the Senate is not completed until we look at the votes and proceedings. So, when we bring out the votes and proceedings.
So there you have it. Barrister Kingdom Okere, you had a protest, but the Senate President is saying, look, this issue is still in consideration. They haven't concluded on it. Do you think your protest was premature? And what do you make of the Senate President's statement?
It's a voice of a man without credibility. I don't attach any form of credibility to Senate President Godswill Akpabio, and I will defend it anyway. He can sue me, he can sue for defamation. Akpabio lacks credibility. This is Akpabio, Honorable Speaker, off your mind. You know, these are when they want to, when he was attempting to defend his corruption as a minister, in charge of Niger Delta, and all the Maccabee dance, and all the abracadabra he perpetrated there. This is the same Akpabio that has a series of issues with Natasha and others. I don't want to go into his personal, lifestyle, but as a Senate President, he has proven, to lack credibility and lack trust. The Nigerians don't trust him. The Senate under him is just a rubber stamp Senate. You can see how he stage managed, that abracadabra that happened in the floor of the Senate with his gang men, Senator Monguno, and the Deputy Senate President. See how they already moved the motion and they stage managed the brouhaha that we witnessed in the National Assembly. There was noise everywhere. Even senators themselves did not even realize when the motion was moved and seconded, and they already, passed, the motion, that was never debated, that was never, interrogated, so because they had an agenda, transfer and transmit. He just wants to whittle down, the effectiveness of electronic transmission of results, to say transfer and transmit. They want to retain, what is in the current 2022 electoral law, so as to vest discretion on the incumbent INEC chairman, who will now, in turn, corruptly exercise that discretion in their favor. That is all of them are jumping to APC.
Okay. All right.
All of them are jumping because they believe if you go to APC, election will be rigged on your behalf.
Barrister Okere, well, these are just
they must destroy the proposed amendment to the Electoral Act to capture compulsory transmission of results that Nigerians can view from INEC, from their various destinations. That is the foundation they want to lay. And we are telling them that this democracy, we will sustain it together. This Nigeria belongs to all of us. It doesn't belong to the few people that find themselves either as the president, or legislative arm of government. The real power belongs to the people, and that is what we want to show them, we want to prove it with this electoral 2026. It's either the right thing is done or we occupy the National Assembly.
Barrister Okere, thank you so much. But you've made strong statements that you can only prove if you have facts. I mean, you're a barrister, so you know that. Saying they want to rig, and that's what they want to do. Well, we don't.
I think they want to lay foundation to rig 2027 election. The foundation is to kill and bury electronic transmission of results.
Okay.
Make it discretionary.
Please permit me to.
As it is in the 2022.
Please permit me to go to Barrister Ufeli right now. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Barrister Ufeli, please let me come to you. I'm sorry, my producers have informed me that we have a short time. We've not heard you yet, so Barrister Okere, please do bear with us. Let's listen to Barrister Ufeli. Earlier on, we asked what your thoughts were about this situation and what it means. Electronic transmission, transfer, mandatory. Can you share with us what the law can do and what it won't do?
Seems to be jittering. According to him, he said people have already gone to TV. Yes, people will go to TV because election matter is very critical. We saw how they handled the 2023 elections. And so people must go to TV. And we are not even saying the process has been completed. Nobody is saying that. We are saying the decisions you have taken so far, are criminally orchestrated because it undermines the general wish and aspiration of the people. And that is that we need to have real-time transmission, not transfer, but real-time transmission. Real-time transmission means that as the voting is ongoing, the transfer is taking place at the same time, so that there will be no room for any of those, their funny language, their technical glitch, their criminal enterprise, and all sorts. You see, before now, at the committee stage and the clause-to-clause reading stage, they've all agreed that they are going to have real-time transmission. They all agreed. All of a sudden, the source is there. If you look at today's Vanguard, you will see the source there. How 10 lawmakers from the Southwest, were used to scuttle the process, to lobby other lawmakers and the Senate President himself, and turn this whole thing upside down overnight. Okay? Just because they want to ensure that they use this process to retain the kind of criminal activity they did in the 2023 election. And Nigerians are saying no to this. We're saying no to this because we have gone far beyond that level. They claim that it's because there's no internet in some places and all that. That is why people in those places have phones. You don't need too much bandwidth to do that transmission. So they cannot give us that. We don't need that, okay? That transmission is very critical because that is what will update our electoral process. If that is not achieved in this amendment, that means there's no reform. There's no electoral reform so far. What we have is just an exercise in futility, and they just want, to have this long drag and then take us back to where we're coming from. And that should not be allowed by Nigerians. And I'm glad that people are already assembling, people are out there, people are protesting and making sure that, and if you notice, they have called for an emergency meeting tomorrow. There's an emergency meeting now tomorrow on the said issue, even though in the notice of meeting, they didn't say, instead of the 24th now, they have called for this, for the 10th. okay, to reconsider whatever it is they have done. You see, power belongs to the people. The Constitution says in Section 14, the sovereignty belongs to the people through which government derives its legitimacy. Okay? So it is the people's voice that should determine legislative decision and not the wish and aspiration of a collective few of us, few members of the House who do not have the interests of the masses at heart. So if we do not have this real-time transmission, there's no way you are going to have a credible election in that. And if you look at the time, because the Senate frustrated this, took a lot of time, okay? And whatever they are doing today is still going to be subject to the president's assent. The president can decide to veto it, okay? And then there's no time again. If he vetoes it and there's no time again between now and the next election, that means it will not be used. So I think that Nigerians should assemble to recall their lawmakers. That is what we should do, because the time wasted on this issue, and then at the end of the day, they mumbled up everything in confusion. You know, it's one that NLC, the whole civil society, and everyone is on this issue. They wasted so much time that they achieved nothing in the process. They were going on recess, you know, the way they like. When the year started, they didn't even reconvene in good time to determine this process, because they have ulterior motive about this. They are so scared because they know that if we have real-time transmission, the current government, this current government, as unpopular as this government is, may not be able to win 2 states at any level. So that is why they don't want this thing to happen. And so Nigerians should, you know, he said people are going to TV. We are just starting. We'll go to the street also, and we'll occupy everywhere, including the National Assembly where they are, to ensure that it is the will of the people that must supersede decision, not that of the National Assembly. We will not send them there to go and mess up things for us. Nigerians have suffered enough, okay? We need to gain our life back. This APC government have ruptured the Nigerian economy, have destroyed whatever is left of the economy, and have turned everything to a mess. This is the time to regain our freedom from this economic anguish.
Pastor Ufeli, staying with you. We've often complained about the digitalization of the electoral process in Nigeria, where courts often determine who the winners are. Looking at the current round of electoral reforms, and they've had town halls, they've been speaking about it for the last 2 years, and so many things have come up, but the focus seems to be on the mandatory electronic transmission of results. There's also the increase of fines for vote buying from 500,000 naira to 5 million. Amongst this and others, would you say this current round of electoral reforms would reduce the over-dependency on the Nigerian judiciary to decide who winners are in elections? Because that's the purview of INEC, that's their constitutional role, but because of lack of trust in the system and one reason or the other, all these electoral cases end up in courts.
Is that for me?
Yes, Barrister Ufeli.
Yes, yeah, there are other areas of the amendment, just that the issue of transmission is so critical that it has to take a larger chunk of the time. There's also the issue of the vote buying, okay, increasing it, making it more penal, and then giving it penal consequences is quite a good one. And when you look at also the issue of the presentation in terms of litigation, how long it will take and how many witnesses and agents that are required to tender document and all of that. There's an amendment as to the fact that there will be no need to call all, you know, because of the limited time and all that. So they are bridging all that. And even though you have certain precedent that says that will amount to a litigant dumping evidence in the court and not speaking directly to it. So all those amendments are critical. Is just for the purposes of making sure that things go well. But if we get transmission right, it will reduce litigation. If we get transmission right, it will reduce litigation, because that way the contestants, okay, are able to see clearly that there is transparency. Once you can achieve transparency from accreditation to actual voting and transmission, that way we will reduce the dissatisfaction, will reduce litigation. Because when people are not satisfied with the process, that's when they go to court and say that there's substantial non-compliance with the Electoral Act, and that the substantial non-compliance with the Electoral Act affected the outcome, and so they want to litigate. But if it is clear to them that they actually didn't win the election, and it's clear from the transmission and all that, they can trace it and read the reading of votes and all that, there will be no need for litigation. So that is why transmission is very important. Every other area, okay, that the amendment flows through is critical, but much more than every other thing, that retransmission is important to us, because that is what stopped the 2023 election and turned the result upside down, so that that's what brought us here. The consequences, elections have consequences. And the consequence of that is why we're here. We're not able to recognize ourselves again. If we allow them to continue this way and they use this same process to run the 2027 election, by the time we are concluding that cycle, if we see one another, we will not recognize ourselves again because of what would have happened in the course of time.
Well, I hope that we don't get to that level. We still recognize ourselves, come what may. But let me go to Barrister Okere. Barrister, the Senate President said that the reason why they looked at making it not real time is because there's no network in 9 states. So it will affect the real-time upload of results. And he doesn't know why Nigerians are, clamoring and already hitting the streets and, making noise. He clearly said this, and I quote him, he said that we don't understand the law. I mean, he's a lawyer as well. What do you make of that?
Well, I disagree with him. There's no network, even though there are few remote areas in Nigeria where you can still have a very, difficult network services. Maybe that is the reason why we are agitating that it should be made mandatory. So if the electoral law captures mandatory transmission of results, well, all the billions of naira that they gave Yakub Mahmoud and Jega over the years, what did they use it for? What was it used for? Do you know how much our election costs in this country? It's for them to invest in the election technology. INEC should have all this equipment. In fact, INEC could have a gadget that would transmit results, that will have internet that transmit results even from a tunnel that does not have any network. In those days, there was no GSM, not 9 was being used, Motorola. So all the billions of naira that has been invested in INEC over the years, what was it used for? It was embezzled for corrupt conduct of the election, just for compensation. So it's for printing of electoral ballot sheet, result sheet that at the end of the day you will not rely on the ballot that we are cast. So that's what they use it for. So what I'm saying is that if our electoral law captures compulsory transmission of results, then the INEC will now see that this has been made compulsory, and of course they will go for the electronic gadgets that can help them transmit this result, even from remote areas that do not have that kind of internet. It can be done, and it has been proven to have been done in other clients. And then other aspect of the amendment, that I want to talk about, I want to sharply disagree with my colleague that spoke last, commending the reduction of time in litigation. So far, the 6 months, within which election petition matters, should be concluded as contained in the current electoral law. It's not even enough for litigants to prove election litigation. Election litigation is very difficult to prove in this country, and that is why what we were even expecting is that the electoral law should have shifted the burden of proof on INEC. So that it will make INEC to now be on the side of the truth and conduct credible, free and fair election if the burden of proof is shifted to them. So that you are filing your petition, INEC will now prove your petition wrong. Not placing the burden of proof on the litigants whom INEC can bring down. The same INEC will frustrate you before you obtain CTC of election or result. The same INEC will come and deny the CTC the issue to you in the tribunal. The same INEC will make it difficult for you to view the INEC portal. Will make it difficult to produce it at the election tribunal. But I know 2-3 election cases that were struck out because INEC refused to make the electronic transmission of results, evidence of it available in the court for viewing. So the burden of proof, what our electoral law should be advocating is that the burden of proof should be shifted to INEC. So that when you write your petition, INEC will now show us to the contrary how they conducted the election free and fair in a credible manner, not placing the burden of proof on the petitioner. Rather than reducing the time, okay, now they've reduced the time notice of election from 1 year to 6 months. So that INEC could now give notice of election maybe later in 2026. And of course, they've reduced the time within which political parties will conduct their primaries. That is, they reduce the time when the final list of candidates will be nominated, will be published to 3 months. So why do all that? Because all these things, they are laying foundation for criminal conduct of 2027 election. Vis-a-vis the removal of compulsory transmission of results. This is the foundation they are laying. And we have seen it. And we are saying we will resist it by any lawful means, including exercising our constitutional right to freely exercise ourselves, to freely express ourselves, and to freely protest against such unlawfulness, such criminal acts, such illegality. So the members of the National Assembly, they are not, they are displaying the priority. The priority should be shifting the burden of proof on INEC so that INEC will not see the need to conduct free, credible election at all levels, both at the presidential election, National Assembly election, Senate Assembly election, gubernatorial election. Shift the burden of proof on them so that by the time your petition is before the tribunal, INEC, the onus will not be on INEC to show to the contrary how they conducted free, fair, credible election. And that will now make them to produce everything they have done, how they transmitted the results from polling unit to ward level, to ward collection center, to local government collection center, to state collection center, where this election will be resolved, and for presidential election at the National Collection Center at the ICC or whichever venue that INEC may choose. So they will now have the onus. The onus will not be on them to show how they conducted free, fair, credible election. This system of leaving the burden of proof on the petitioner has not worked justice. It has rather make INEC to remain an institution that will perpetrate criminality, illegality, and still come out boldly to defend its criminality. Because in every election litigation, INEC is a party, a compulsory party.
Yes.
And they will come here and file
thank you very much. I'd like to bring Barrister Ufeli into the conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Barrister Kingdom Okere. I'd like to bring Barrister Ufeli into the conversation. I mean, we've been talking about electoral reforms, and one thing that stands out, and a lot of Nigerians have raised eyebrows about this, is the speed at which electoral campaigns kicked off. It was almost, the paint had really even dried from the thumbprinting and the ballots of the 2023 elections. And we started here in 2027. It was almost like 2026 did not exist. Sections 94, subsection 1 of the Nigerian Constitution provides that the period of campaigning in public by every political party shall commence 150 days before polling day and end 24 hours prior to that day. I mean, if you talk about how many people are following this directive, it will be zero. And the penalty is this. It's a paltry 500,000 naira for violating this. 150 days. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, we've seen years before before even the election year. We've seen massive campaigns. If you drive across the airport road and 3rd Mainland Bridge and all of this in open defiance of this. My question to you is twofold, Barrister Ufeli. Number one, what does this do to governance and the psyche, the psychology of the people when it's open campaign season, even several years before the general elections? And should this provision have been one of the acts that the National Assembly should have looked into in their electoral laws, so we can really face the serious governance, the serious business of governance? Because if you look at our human development indices, we're lacking in many areas. We're playing catch up.
Yeah, before I get to that question, let me just make a short response to my colleague on the issue of the issue I raised. I didn't commend the National Assembly or Senate for the reduction of time for litigation. What I said is that the number of witnesses, agents, and all that, the issue of you calling all of them is being taken care of, such that once you front load documents, the document can be relied on without necessarily calling all those witnesses. That's the area that I said that would make litigation faster. As for the time, I didn't talk about the time. But for your question, that section, okay, that section is observed in breach, the one that deals with the time within which campaign should start. Almost all political parties and most politicians violate that section. Okay, last week we saw Okere in Rivers State donating buses, campaigning as if the election is tomorrow. The next day after the 2023 election, we started seeing posters of the president everywhere. Okay, so from the president down to the last voter or persons involved in politics, everyone has breached that part of the law. So I think we need to take that part of the law very serious. First of all, if you look at the penalty that comes with that violation, it is nothing to write home about. Perhaps that is why it's being breached, because you can actually pay the fine from your pocket and all that. So we need to make stiffer penalty and then make it a strong rule that anyone who violates the election should be disqualified. Anyone who violates that section should be disqualified from contesting the election. That way, people will come together, because we need to seek governance after election. Okay, it's just unfortunate that the government we have today at the center knows nothing about governance. Okay, what you understand is politics, and so it has supplanted governance with politics. That was why just immediately after the swearing-in, campaign started again, because that is what the government understands. It does not know anything about governance. So there is a need for that particular section of the law. We need to make serious issue about it. Anyone who campaigns before, but I mean, 150 days, people are already there campaigning all over the place, making all sorts. In fact, some persons are even telling you the persons that will win the election that is not yet here, that's going to be conducted next year and all that. So all those violations, we have to take serious look at them seriously and make sure the penalties are such that can stand as proper deterrent to whoever violates it. Because whoever violates those sections is as good as whoever violates any other part of the Electoral Act. Okay. And that document is very important.
Okay. I want to say thank you so much, gentlemen, for speaking with us. Thank you, Barrister Kingdom Okere, and also Barrister Ufeli, for speaking with us. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We'll wait till tomorrow. Let's see the outcome of the meeting at the Senate, and hopefully we'll have you join us again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well.
We'll go on a quick break. The front pages of the newspapers is up next. Stay with us.